welcome to Retro Warriors episode 415. Woo. As always, I'm your host, Justin Baker, and as always, I'm joined by viable human Chris Saturn.
It still sounds weird.
It's good. I like it. I like it all. Okay. Until someone comes up with something better. That's not worse than old bastard. I think that's the key. Because I feel like if we take suggestions, it's going to be like, piece of shit. Like, that's going to be the first.
Clown fucker.
I mean, it depends on the clown, right?
Right,
you know,
yeah. I mean, if it's an attractive clown, I mean,
set of
it's not completely discount things.
What the fuck's happening?
I don't know.
What is happening?
This is your show.
As far as housekeeping,
Yes,
Guy's going to be on this episode after the ending theme, so please stay tuned. We'll have Guy on for the after party for his producer segment. So be there or be square. As far as my week, I think I talked about it last recording session. I've tried to start my own county-wide tabletop gaming club.
I don't think you did talk about it last time. I think you were talking about it in the chat, but not on the show.
So I have started going through the mode. So for people that don't know, I live about 45 minutes west of the westernmost portion of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex.
Yeah. If you're looking at a map, you've fallen off the side of it.
And then, yeah. And so that means all of the tabletop gaming around me is at least an hour one way. Some of it an hour and a half to 2 hours if I'm hitting the Dallas side of the Metroplex.
Unless, of course, you convince your child and dogs to play with you.
True. And there is no game store in my whole county or all of the adjacent surrounding counties except for 2. Okay. And I think there's 7 counties that touch mine, maybe 6. So it is a gaming desert out here. And I thought, surely there have got to be other people that live out here near where I live that are also sick of having to drive an hour and a half to Dallas to play tabletop games with people. And so I started my own club. Okay. And I was like, this will be fun. And so I'm advertising for it. I'm already in a bunch of tabletop groups for DFW, so I make a logo and I start sharing it in those groups.
Right.
And before I know it, my afternoons are eaten up being on the phone with event centers, libraries, and coffee shops to schedule in-person meetups for this group that I now run.
Justin, why do you hate free time?
Okay, I like free time, but I like
not want to sleep.
I like getting to hang out and play games with people just as much. And so what was originally just an internet group I made to see if other people want to play games, now we have a monthly standing event at the local library and the local coffee shop, and I've been on the horn with event centers getting rates for quarterly or maybe bi-monthly events.
Do you have to travel back to the last century to get on the horn with someone?
It feels that way. So I'm very excited about it. We have not had our first event. It is next week. It's going to be a Thursday night at the closest coffee shop to me.
Nice.
And we'll see how many people come out. It's one of those things where, like, a lot of people might be excited about it on social media, and then 2 people show up.
Right.
So we'll see what actually happens.
Good luck. I hope you don't get murderated.
That started eating up huge amounts of my free time because I'm, when you're starting a group, you're the only person there. Yeah. So you have to be the person posting and being excited and commenting and talking to people.
Right.
And it just takes a lot of energy to be the sole source of excitement and forward momentum for a group of 40 plus individuals.
Right.
But yeah, so I started that. If you are anywhere near the Wise County, Texas area, then you can look us up.
Yeah.
And you can come play games with us. It'll be a good time. And I'm also prepping because in August, I'm running 10 hours of tabletop games at a convention.
Yeah, I saw that you had said something about that.
Yeah, I'm running 3 games at Lone Star Game Expo. So anybody in Texas, if you're going to Lone Star Game Expo, I think there's still seats at 2 of my games. Because I told myself that I want to start running games at conventions. I've gone and played in them, but I want to run some because I like running games. Yeah. And instead of just doing like 1, I decided to do 10 hours of them.
Are you going to dress oddly for it?
You mean more oddly than I like normally already do, or
like wear a cloak or a hat with a feather in it or something?
No, I got rid of my cloak, and I've gotten my weird hat box has been put in storage.
What's even the point?
And I wish I was joking. I used to have a whole outfit I wore when I ran D&D games, and the idea was that it, when you're doing tabletop games, there's this like minimum barrier of kind of goofiness that you need to get past with people, this like goofiness icebreaker.
Yeah.
So that people feel comfortable, like pretending to be a wizard for 4 solid hours.
So you just put on a plastic Viking hat?
Yeah, so I act the stupidest out of the gate in the hopes that other people will be like, well, I can't look like more of a jackass than this jackass. So I might as well be like, yes, I'm a wizard. Like, why not? But yeah, that all got put up, and my good cloak was gotten rid of. So I only have my shitty cloak.
Oh, well, what's even the point?
It's not worth wearing. This is weird. So yeah, I started the Wise County Tabletop Association, and so I'm trying to get that off the ground.
Good luck.
And we're dealing with local establishments, and it's just a lot of it's a lot of work. This is why people don't run this shit.
Yeah,
it's tough stuff, So that's been a lot of my free time, was just trying to find venues and get events started so that, I have a ball rolling there. What have you been doing, Saturn?
A lot. I took a week off of work, so I had some spare time. So and then I finished the Final Fantasy Pickle remasters, which I was still playing the last time that we recorded.
It sounded like you said pickle remasters, and now I want them to forever be referred to as the pickle remasters.
Oh man, can you imagine little adorable pickle people? That'd be so great. What would a pickle Moogle look like? Anyway, so yeah, I think
it'd just be a pickle with the little pink ball.
Oh, that's perfect.
That'd be it.
That's perfect.
Be the whole
and
thing.
Little wings, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Obviously. Yeah.
So yeah, I finished Final Fantasy 6 and 4 on there, and they're still good. They're still good games. And then after I finished, I was like, well, I'm close enough to the release of games that I want to play that are coming out soon that I don't want to start anything major. So I just started, doom scrolling Game Pass and my current libraries and everything, and trying to find things that were short enough that I could play for a little bit and not have to...
telling yourself the whole time that there's nothing to play.
Right.
You scroll hundreds of games.
It's not even that. It was like, these are some things I kind of want to play, but I'm not going to have time now, so I better find something else. And so just the dumb shit. And so I did go back to the Atari 50th collection, which
I've heard good things about.
It's such a good collection because it's not just a bunch of games; it's also kind of museum-y, and it feels like an interactive documentary about Atari and their history. And then it's got the games, and it's got the remixed versions of the games that are more modern and a little more playable and everything. So it's still it's such a great little collection. And then when I was just digging through Game Pass, I landed on Piku Niku.
Yeah, my daughter played that before getting really frustrated with it because it got hard.
Yes, that was where I got. I played it for a little bit, and I got really frustrated because I felt like I wasn't making any progress anymore. Like when I first started, I was like, "This is pretty adorable. I can play this for a while," and then I couldn't figure out what the fuck I was doing, or if I had actually done what I was supposed to be doing, and I was like, "No, this is the line." So I went back to Gungrave Gore, which I think I talked about on the show. But I can't remember. Did you ever play any of the Gungraves?
No, that was the one that was on Xbox, right?
No, PS2.
No.
Yeah.
No. That was one that I'd always heard about Gungrave, but never
so
did it.
It's a game that Sega put out back on the PS2. And it was made by Red Entertainment. And you play as this big-ass dude who carries a coffin around and guns. And every now and then he throws the coffin over his shoulder and uses it like a rocket launcher. And other times he just swings it around like a yo-yo because that's how coffins work.
This sounds great.
Yeah, it's great. It's dumb. It's over the top. It's needlessly violent. The new version still feels like it's a budget game. Like it feels like something that, could have been a high dollar indie game or a low dollar B tier game, and the voice acting is just ridiculous. It still feels like it's got that, direct to Sci-Fi Channel original movie vibe going on. And the levels of violence and profanity are so over the top to make it just ridiculous.
Just stupid enough.
Yes, just dumb enough to be enjoyable. Like, it crosses that threshold between poorly made and ridiculous, right back over to enjoyable again. But the gameplay itself is still kind of simple. That'd be my biggest complaint about it. But the presentation and everything is just so dumb that I enjoy it anyway. And then when I was just trying to kill some more time, I went back to a couple of games that I didn't think I would like and still kind of like, which is Darkest Dungeon and Slay the Spire.
Man, Slay the Spire. What a game.
Yeah.
That's a game.
It is.
I love that game.
That is correct. It is a game.
It's so good.
I go back and forth on it because, like, I kind of like playing it in the moment, but then the moment that I put it down, I do not want to go back to it because if you lose and have to start over with a whole deck and everything, I'm like, no, I already put in the effort. I don't want to do that.
The first couple times I messed around with it, I really I was the same. And then something about the third or fourth time was when I clicked and really played the shit out of it.
That's good.
I think it's one of those games where it takes a little bit for it to really click. And then once it does, it can be something really special. But I think sometimes it takes a little bit of effort to get there.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is, what happened for me was I finally just went and read like an article about like tips about like playing the game so that I could quickly and efficiently build a deck so that when restarting wasn't such an ordeal because I knew how to quickly and efficiently get back to it, so that helped a lot. But before you get there, because presumably better players than me just get there naturally. I'm not that good. I had to go look it up.
I remember you made a big deal about that first screenshot I posted from it back when I first started playing it. You were like, how did you do this on your first run? And I was like, I don't know.
So maybe it's just, maybe I'm wrong because you're obviously insanely good at the game.
I don't think I am.
If that was how good you did on your first run, then I'm sorry, but you are. Period.
Darkest Dungeon, I can clearly say I am not good at.
Darkest Dungeon is one
game.
I wanted to like so bad, and I kind of hate it because it is so depressing.
Yeah, it is really bleak. It is a bleak experience.
The mechanics are really cool. I like the combat. It's fun, but it makes me feel sad playing it. And I can't get past that. It's the same issue I had with Ed McMillan, Little Naked Boy.
Binding of Isaac.
Binding of Isaac.
Yes.
Where like I love the gameplay, but like the game is just like I don't want to look at it.
Yeah, it is. That is one that has a very interesting aesthetic. Yeah, the comedy in that one kind of outweighs the darkness for me, but then the comedy leans a little too hard into poop jokes sometimes, and that kind of ruins the comedy for me a little bit. So,
it's that
is a game that rides a line.
Yeah. But I wish someone would make like a happy mod for Darkest Dungeon.
Another thing I did this week, I replaced the stereo in my car with one with a fancy Android Auto screen and everything.
Oh, goodness.
So
living in the future.
Right? My 2009 Mazda with its manual windows and door locks now has this giant fancy touchscreen in the middle of the dash. That connects to my phone and has a GPS and everything on it. It's very fancy. I feel like
that's
I'm in the
good.
Future.
Yeah, that's good.
Right. And I have a rear view camera too. It's crazy.
You did like a full upgrade.
I'm in the fucking future, man.
Holy cow!
Yeah. Anyway,
how intense,
right?
Now you just need to add you a remote start on your, and you have a little remote start button.
No, that's too many. That's
no,
too much.
And then you can start it from inside when it's hot or cold outside,
that's
and it'll
crazy.
just
First,
man, my wife's
I want to
van
get a
has
car.
that. It's amazing.
First, I want to get a car where I can unlock the doors with the remote. If I can get
At
that
a
far,
distance.
I have never had a car with a remote control for the door locks. I am 40 years old. It's 2023, and I've never had a car with remote entry. And,
I have only ever had 2 cars that did not have it. I had one of those cars that had the automatic seat belts. You get in, and the seat belt seat belts you in.
Yeah,
that was a thing for like 3 years. A bunch of cars had it, and then they just quit doing it. I don't know why.
My neighbors had a Chrysler New Yorker in the late 80s that had that. And it was one of the ones that talked at you. That would tell you a door was ajar when you would turn on the engine if you didn't shut all your doors first.
What weird retro futurism
they
had in cars in the late 80s.
The only reason anyone I knew what the word ajar meant was because of cars like that.
Let's do the news.
Yeah.
First up, Legend of Zelda. The first Legend of Zelda was ported to the Super Nintendo, I guess.
Yeah, did you play it?
No, I didn't.
It's a good port. 2, it's changed almost nothing from the original except for like some on-screen prompts so that they list the correct buttons or whatever. But there's no flicker. There is no slowdown. It just runs very, very well and is neat.
Can't you already achieve that with like NES ROM hacks or just turning off sprite limit in your emulator?
Possibly, probably. I don't know. But you can play it on original hardware if you want.
That's true. Yeah, it's cool. I don't mean to diminish the accomplishment. It's a cool thing.
Right.
It's just also one of those things that I'm like, is that a thing?
Yeah, it is a weird thing.
Does somebody want that?
Now, maybe if they take what's happened and then somebody does a ROM hack to it to replace all the graphics with like nicer graphics,
that'd be cool.
Then it gets to be even more exciting. But as it is now, it feels kind of proof of concept-y.
Yeah. Capcom opens up Capcom Town, which is not a town. It's a website to celebrate their 40th anniversary. Includes museums, historical documents, and emulated Super Nintendo games, including Street Fighter II, Final Fight, and Mega Man X. So 2 really good games there. Very, very neat thing for them to come out and celebrate. Are you saying
the Super NES version of Final Fight is not best? It's not just...
I am going to say that, yeah. No, that game sucks. It's not awesome.
But what if it were Final Fight Guy?
Still the same game, though, really, isn't it?
Yes.
Just
with replaces Cody with Guy.
So,
Yeah. I played so much of that.
I wish more companies did this stuff, like, especially like the emulated games and everything, whatever. But the historical documents,
it's really
I like design documents for a lot of these games that, because I mean, as people who cover retro video games, every week, there are so many games that we just don't really have any data on how they were made, how the people that made them, or sometimes even who made them.
Right.
And seeing just even early design documents, early sketches, early art assets, anything can be really enlightening to a lot of this stuff. Now, thankfully, most Capcom games are pretty well documented to begin with, but I wish that other companies would get on board with like, hey, I know you've got some old design documents lying around. Like, that would be so cool.
Also, their museum section that just lists a bunch of their important games. I don't know if it is translated from Japanese in a quirky and fun way, or if it is translated from Japanese in an absolutely literal way that just reads as if it is weird and quirky and fun. But it's great. When it shows Mega Man 1, it's like the attack of the robot with giant scissors on its head. And then when you get to the Game Boy Mega Man 1, Dr. Wily's Revenge, it says the robot with the giant scissors on its head makes its return. And it's just ridiculous stuff like that. And then it refers to Ghosts and Goblins as a pioneer in the Maso-core game genre, which isn't a word I'd heard before.
What does that even mean?
It's a word. It's in Wikipedia. It's a video game subgenre with a focus on intense difficulty, often featuring complex or unfair mechanics.
Oh, well, then I agree.
Yeah.
It is in that genre. Soul Calibur 5 is being delisted from PS3 and Xbox 360, so get your games while the getting's good, because the corpos is coming for them. They're going to take them away.
I don't know why they keep delisting Soul Calibur games. I just don't get it. I don't get it.
It's because fuck you and the money you spent.
Basically,
it's theirs, and they will take it away from you.
Right.
That's exactly why.
Yeah.
McDonald's released a new Game Boy Color game called Grimace's Birthday.
Yeah.
This is real.
Yeah.
This is a real game that McDonald's released.
Yes.
And I don't know what the hell McDonald's is doing lately.
It plays all right,
but
too.
They released that chicken nugget video game, Tetris game.
Yeah.
They've released this Game Boy Color game for some reason.
And it is specifically a Game Boy Color game. If you try to boot it on an original Game Boy, it gives one of those, this game doesn't play on Game Boy screens that has a giant picture of a scared Grimace.
What's great is in the McDonald's video game canon, there's a surprising amount of decent games.
Yeah, there's the one that Treasure did.
Yeah. There are multiple good McDonald's games. Yeah. How weird is that?
I am upset that there aren't more McDonald's games, specifically about like deep dives into McDonald land lore. Like bring back Officer Big Mac.
Get real nitty gritty,
right?
With this. Atari releasing a new physical Atari 2600 game called Mr. Run and Jump.
You can put it on your shelf next to Grimace's birthday.
I guess the VCS didn't do very well. They're going back to what they know, which is
the other VCS.
Atari 2600 games. It's cool. I like that. Companies are getting on board with like stuff like this. Hopefully, they also release the ROM of it, and it's not just locked in. Did they? Okay, good. Embracer Group is restructuring and laying off many employees. Says they will, quote, exploit Lord of the Rings in a significant fashion, end quote. That is a quote.
Yeah.
That's a quote that they said.
Yeah.
And that Tomb Raider development is unaffected. So I don't fucking know. So here's the thing. When Embracer Group stepped in and started scooping everything up, everyone was like, this is awesome. Embracer is awesome.
Yeah.
And I feel like we were a little nervous. And then as time has borne out, and it's going to be a shocking conclusion for some people, but corpos are going to fuck shit up.
Weird.
That's what they're doing here.
Yeah.
We are going to exploit Lord of the Rings in a significant... Could you imagine any other context where you could say you were going to exploit something or someone in a significant fashion and people weren't immediately like, what the fuck is wrong with you? What? Who says this?
In their defense, I think they were talking to shareholders, which are also subhuman creatures.
I don't... fuck you, Embracer Group.
Right.
Square Enix accidentally leaked Star Ocean, the second story R, on their support page, and I think it has been announced,
properly announced,
hasn't it? Yeah,
but it looks good. It's a quasi 2.5D remake of Star Ocean 2, and man, I'm so ready. I am so ready.
I've never clicked with the Star Ocean. I've tried 2 or 3 of them. I tried the remake of the first one on Switch, and I put in a few hours, but I just didn't love it.
2 is the best one.
Okay.
It is peak next generation meets JRPG. And it's good. It's so good.
Taito and Hamster are releasing obscure arcade brawler Runark, aka Growl, on arcade archives for PS4 and Switch. Yeah. I don't know what this is.
It's a very old brawler. It was also on Genesis. In the US it was called Growl, which is the stupidest name for a game.
I agree. Yes.
But in Japan, it is called Runark, unless you look at the text on the side of the cabinet where it's called Lunark, or the press release they put out, which calls it Runalk.
I don't think they know what they're releasing.
No, they don't.
They have no idea.
But it's just a real basic, real early brawler.
Yeah. Fire Emblem added to Nintendo Switch Online Plus.
The Game Boy Advance one, which is, I think, the 5th game?
Who the fuck knows?
Yeah.
They chose not to number things because fuck us, right?
Right.
Why would they number things? New Yuzu piracy subreddit was banned amidst the drama at Reddit. And I will admit that I've used that subreddit before while searching for links for stuff. I never really hung out there or spent much time, but apparently that subreddit didn't have a great reputation to begin with.
That's unfortunate.
So, I guess we just have to go elsewhere for your Switch piracy, which is to say anywhere else on the internet, because it's just all over the place. I mean, you can just literally Google Switch piracy and just get inundated with places.
Oh, no, I'm just saying porn.
Oh, no. Well, sorry. You must be on Bing. Microsoft announces that they are done producing new games for the Xbox One. Little shocked they held out as long as they did,
right?
Realistically.
Sony says they're not yet done with PS4, or at least they won't confirm they are done with PS4.
Yeah, which seems backwards. Seems we're usually,
Yeah, but both Microsoft and Sony are still allowing third parties to publish games for their older platforms. So it's not completely dead now.
Yeah. New EU regulation will require devices to include replaceable batteries by 2027, including gamepads, handhelds, etc. Finally, the EU doing what every fucking corpo should have done in the first place.
Yeah.
Put goddamn... it makes me so mad. I get so mad, Saturn. I have so much rage in me.
What?
I know, I have so much rage. And here's the thing. I understand that for the aesthetic of your device, maybe you don't want to have a little battery slot like it's the back of a fucking Game Boy, but at least the battery you put in it, make it an off-the-shelf part, a standardized battery that I can go on AliExpress or Amazon or wherever.
Sell it so that somebody else can later clone it.
I mean, man, what the fuck,
and make it to where I can get into the device to change the battery without a heat gun and a pry tool and all that bullshit.
Yeah, this is a step in the right direction for consumers.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that it trickles down to the rest of the world, not just Europe. Otherwise, I'm going to have to start buying controllers from Europe.
Right to repair in general has been a tough, a tough uphill battle, but there has been some progress in recent years. So I'm hopeful that it will continue.
Yeah.
Square Enix re-released Chocobo GP without all of its microtransactions for $49.99. In other words, they finally actually released the fucking game.
Now, here's the thing. I bought the game on a cartridge from Asia. I don't yet know if the version that I have acts as the new unlocked version or if it is just a dead old version.
Would you like me to tell you which it is? Because, Saturn, this is Square Enix.
I have a good guess, but I haven't tested
yet. What the fuck
yet.
do they care that you spent $50 on this game before?
Right.
You may do it again if you want to play it, because fuck you and fuck me.
I'm curious.
That's their stance.
I am curious to try it. I haven't yet, but I'm curious to see how boned I am on this purchase.
I hope it unlocks, but it would be very...
out of character.
It would be very in lockstep with Square Enix's attitudes for them to be like, well, just buy it again if you want it again.
Right. Speaking of just buy it again, Sonic Origins Plus also came out this week.
Oh.
So that if you would like to have Sonic Origins Plus, you can buy Sonic Origins again.
So does it not include all the microtransactions and stuff?
No. So if you bought Sonic Origins Deluxe previously, the deluxe version of Sonic Origins, you still have to buy the Plus upgrade.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because fuck us, right?
Right.
We're just big bags of money that they can come hit with a stick whenever they feel like, I guess. That brings us to the topic at hand.
Speaking of big bags of money.
This week we're talking about Bonk's Adventure.
Yes.
Which, for synopsis, Saturn put in a quote that he attributed to Arthur C. Clarke, probably, that says, any sufficiently advanced headbutt is indistinguishable from hovering.
That sounds like something he'd say, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's definitely... This game was developed by Red Company and Atlas, published by Hudson Soft, released on the TurboGrafx PC Engine in Japan on December 15th, 1989 as PC Genjin, and on the TurboGrafx in North America in April of 1990. It has been ported to the Amiga as BC Kid, the NES, known as Famicom or FC Genjin in Japan, and there was a downport to Game Boy known as GB Genjin in Japan. And there was also an arcade port in 1994.
It's not quite the same game on arcade. It's a slightly modified game on arcade, but it has the same name.
As far as first encounters, Bonk is kind of the semi-unofficial poster platformer for the Turbo.
Right.
I don't know that they ever presented it as hey, this is the Turbo's Mario.
NEC tried to for a little while there.
Did they? Because that's the vibe I always got from Bonk.
It didn't come out at the same time as the system. It was about a year later, much like Sonic was a couple years after the Genesis came out.
Yeah.
But after he did come out, they really wanted him to be their mascot, and they advertised him heavily, despite the fact that he did not carry the traction that Mario or Sonic did.
Yeah. As far as first encounters, I when I got into the Turbo because of you, I played some Bonk. I mostly played the third Bonk, and didn't love it. I was like, it's a neat idea, but the controls are just like the whole like jumping and headbutting and floating in the air thing is just kind of shitty. The collision and hit detection was always kind of weird. I just didn't love it. It wasn't bad. It was like second-rate NES platformer level of fun for me. And so I never really put much time into it until for this show, I sat down and played through the entire game. I think the most enjoyment I've ever gotten out of Bonk was the episode of Game Center CX where he smashes his face into Bonk for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's about all of the exposure to Bonk that I've had.
Yeah. Looking at it, Red Company, who developed Bonk, that's also who developed Gungrave, now that I think about it.
Oh,
so that's coincidental.
Is it?
Anyway, and Atlas, which Atlas is still around.
And Fossil Fighters Champions on DS.
Oh.
I just had the Wikipedia pulled up.
Oh, okay. I first played Bonk on a TurboGrafx demo in a store, probably an electronics boutique or a software etc. or something. And then didn't get around to play much more of it than that until I played the ROM on either an NES or Game Boy emulator. Mm-hmm. And then I didn't get the TurboGrafx version until many years after the system was dead. And I had it for several years and then traded it to somebody for the CD that came with Bonk, Bonk 2, and Lords of Thunder.
Yes.
Which is a much better deal than just Bonk on its own.
I don't know, I thought it was Gate of Thunder on it.
Oh, it might be. Yeah, it might be.
Because I feel like I remember Bonk saying Gate of Thunder.
That's the one, yeah. It is
whenever you
my
pick
bad.
it.
So it's Bonk, Bonk 2, and Gate of Thunder on CD. Yeah. But he didn't have a CD drive for his Turbo, and I did. So he took my Bonk cue card, and I took his CD.
Yeah.
But yeah,
that fool.
Right? I played a bit of all three Bonk games on Turbo, and I would agree that they've never quite hit me as hard as like Mario or Mega Man or Sonic or whatever. But I've still had some fun with them over the years.
Let's talk development then, because I would love to know where the hell Bonk came from. Now, to be fair, this is right in that spot where suddenly caveman stuff was cool.
It's true.
And we talked about it on our Joe and Mac episode. There is this mild pop culture fascination with caveman stuff. Caveman video games, caveman cartoons. There was
Dinosaur
Encino
stuff,
Man.
yeah.
There's dinosaur stuff. There's the show Dinosaurs. There was this kind of weird cultural shift toward like prehistoric. Yeah. Dinosaur, caveman pop culture.
Yeah.
So Bonk was right in that era.
Yeah, also that
being
Flintstones
in the
movie
early 90s.
with John Goodman.
You mean those Flintstone movies they made too?
Yeah.
The second one was Viva Rock Vegas.
Wasn't there a third one that had a different cast too?
Oh, I think there was. Yeah, and it wasn't John Goodman, and wasn't Barney Rubble like fucking Rick Moranis or something?
Yeah.
Yes.
And Rosie O'Donnell was Betty.
Yes, Rick Moranis.
I don't remember who Wilma
Barney
was.
Rubble.
Anyway.
I remember her as Wilma, but I don't remember who the actress was.
Anyway, so yeah, development. There was a Japanese PC Engine magazine in Japan that had featured a comic caveman character that they called PC Genshin as a mascot for the system, but they just kind of made it up for the magazine. It wasn't. It wasn't a game.
Like the weird neckbeardy man in the American Turbo
Johnny
magazine.
Turbo.
Johnny Turbo. Yeah. Why wouldn't... Okay, here's the thing.
Yes, sir.
I'm not trying to be down on any body types or anything like that, but I'm just saying he's kind of dumpy looking.
Yeah.
And if you're going to make a mascot, why would you make him dumpy looking on purpose?
I'm guessing it looked exactly like someone in their office.
That had to have been it, because Johnny Turbo just looks like a random dude,
right?
that they found, and they're like, here, put on this ill-fitting superhero costume. And he was like, okay.
I think this is closer to Nestor than it is to Johnny Turbo.
Yeah. Okay.
But so, yeah, it was originally just the character in the magazine, but many readers mistook him as a character from an upcoming game and kept asking the magazine about, hey, when is this game with the caveman character coming out? So Hudson decided they would actually give him a game, and they commissioned Red and Atlas to make the game. Of course, I think this is after Megami Tensei, but before Shin Megami Tensei. So Atlas had done some things before, but they weren't yet kind of pigeonholed into just the demon-based RPG genre.
Yeah. Well, this would have, because I mean, really, this would have been like 89, 90 when development started.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure. The first Megami Tensei was 87.
Yeah, I was thinking it was before this.
And then the second one was 1990.
Right. But
yeah,
the Shin Megami Tensei wasn't until Super NES, right?
Yeah, Shin Megami Tensei was, let's see, 94.
Okay.
No, pardon me, 92.
Okay.
92 was Shin Megami Tensei. Yeah, so this is before that one.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Yeah. So they had already started that whole thing, but they hadn't been typecast yet. So they were still making all kinds of shit.
Oh yeah,
including things like this.
And Mighty Bomb Jack.
Yeah.
How could we forget Mighty Bomb Jack?
I forgot that they had done that.
He's a guy who has bombs for hands. How do you forget this guy?
I played so much Mighty Bomb Jack. It is the worst Bomb Jack game. I'm just going to say.
It's a piece of shit game.
I love Bomb Jack. Mighty Bomb Jack is not a good game. Anyway. So yeah, the release date for Bonk would have made it the first console mascot character of the 16-bit era, because it is before Sonic was released on the Genesis, and it is before the Super Famicom existed. So this would have been the first of the big three console mascots of that era.
Yeah.
And of course, the name PC Genjin is a play on words between PC Engine and Genjin, which translates to caveman. And also, Hudson said that the PC in PC Genjin stands for Pithecanthropus computerus, which is based on Pithecanthropus erectus, which is the early human-like fossil.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
All right, then.
Totally legit what it stands for, Justin.
Definitely not retconning that. Anyway, let me tell you why Sonic's shoes are red.
Yeah, right.
It's because of all the love we have for our fans. Let's talk presentation, because I think this is where Bonk's adventure shines.
Yes.
It is a very good-looking and very well-animated game for 1989, which is when it hit Japan.
And not only is Bonk well-animated, but a lot of the enemies, especially the boss enemies, are very well-animated with a lot of personality and charm to them.
Yeah, lots and lots of really good-looking big sprites.
Yep.
If
you don't remember TurboGrafx marketing from that era, big sprites was their thing.
Yeah.
They talked all about how they had massive sprites.
And I'll say this, a lot of games that use really big sprites clearly don't know how to use them well. They take up too much screen, or it feels like it's kind of cramped, or the hitboxes are really shitty for them.
Yeah.
This one does it good. Everything's big and bright and very colorful.
Yep.
My playthrough was on a 13-inch CRT, and I could see everything totally fine.
So you're basically
Everything
playing it the way it was meant to be played. If it was 13-inch screen, that's what they expected.
I was laying in a bed playing on a 13-inch CRT with a built-in VCR via composite. That's how I played through the game today. And so it looks really good.
Oh yeah,
it really does. If anything, I actually turned down the color saturation on my TV because it was so saturated.
It is a very bright, colorful game.
Extremely vibrant, like almost eye-blistering vibrant game. So looks really good.
Oh yeah. And the music is catchy and fun.
It's okay. Yeah. I'm not in love with it. I do take issue with the sound design a little bit, because if you have a turbo controller, you're going to be doing the little air spin head bonk thing to kind of float around, and every time you press the button, it makes this like the little kind of noise.
Yeah.
So 90% of my playing the game was just hearing the whole time,
Yeah.
which was a little annoying.
Yeah.
It was a little. I didn't love that. Didn't love that.
Well, whose fault is that, though?
Well, theirs for making that the correct way to play the game.
That's
if you're
true,
not,
yeah.
If you're not
Fair.
turning your turbo controller all the way up and floating through every level, then are you really
every
playing
level
Bonk?
that's not underwater anyway?
True.
Yeah.
Let's talk gameplay.
Okay.
It's okay. You know what it makes me think of? It makes me think of Adventure Island.
Yeah.
It's maybe a little bit more refined feeling than that, but as far as the actual running and jumping, it feels a lot kind of on that level.
Well, they're both Hudson platformers. That makes sense.
Yeah, it does. But that's to say that it's missing some of the
finesse
physics and finesse that a contemporary game that came out around the same time, Mario 3,
right,
has and offers.
Yes.
And it's something we've talked about on the show before. It's this kind of, you don't see the physics in Mario,
right,
and you don't even know that you're feeling them until you go play a game that doesn't have very refined physics, and then you're like, oh, this feels like weird. Something feels wrong here.
Yeah, I played so many different platformers on so many different consoles during this era that I just got accustomed to these games with the less refined, less perfected physics engines.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. The games like Mario 3, especially Mario World, a modern player can still enjoy those because of how well refined they are. Whereas a lot of the other platforms, they are really tough to go back to.
And there's just little weird things like walking off of a ledge slows you down significantly.
True, yeah.
It's like it does this weird kind of like straight down drop a little bit.
Yeah.
Just weird little physics things in the game. None of it is a deal breaker for me.
Right.
I mean, I still played through the whole damn game. But just the basic running and jumping is a little I don't know the right word to say. Just not refined. Unrefined, I guess is the word. But Saturn, just take us through the basic controls in Bonk before we go much further.
So, as far as basic gameplay goes, you got your basic health meter, all the simple stuff. But the important part is the headbutt, because you got your jump is on the 1 button and your headbutt is on the 2 button.
Yeah,
and you can headbutt things, but you have to be really close to them, so it doesn't.
Yeah,
it's not very useful on the ground, but
it's almost too dangerous to try to headbutt things while standing because it has to get so close,
and even worse while walking.
Yeah,
because you basically screech to a halt as soon as you hit headbutt anyway. But if you headbutt in the air, Bonk will flip over and fall headfirst on something, which also damages it. You can also, of course, jump up into things as well to hit them with your head. And if you headbutt repeatedly in the air, you kind of do a somersault, which turns into a hover if you do it fast enough, which you will because you have a turbo controller because you're playing on TurboGrafx.
Yes. And the thing about the hover, which is what I'm going to call it, is that it breaks the game.
Yeah.
And like they knew that you were going to have a turbo controller.
Well, for me, it breaks the game as much as flying in Mario 3 or Mario World does, which but whereas Mario 3 and Mario World seem to know that and build some of the levels around it.
They design around it. Bonk does not.
Yeah, Bonk doesn't seem to do that as much. In the later Bonk games, they do a little more. But this first one, they don't seem to have acknowledged that this was in here, despite
even
how obvious it was.
Bonk's Revenge, the opening level, kind of right off the bat requires you to do some strategic hovering.
Yeah.
And immediately it's a better game because of that. This feels like I know this cannot be the case, but it almost feels like they didn't realize you could hover. That's honestly, it really almost feels like they didn't realize that like someone in development didn't go, hey, wait a minute, can't we just turn turbo all the way up and just hover across the screen?
Well, part of it is that the PC Engine wasn't coming with turbo controllers yet.
True.
So even though they were obviously available, maybe they weren't standard, so they didn't expect everyone to do this. But the US system, I think, was already out by the time this game came out, so they definitely knew turbo controllers were a thing.
It seems weird,
right?
But it isn't designed around this kind of verticality and height that Bonk can achieve.
Yeah.
A lot of the times you're just floating through empty space because the game's, it's like they didn't know what to do with it.
And it's funny. So the hover is the thing that I always remember first, looking back on it from today. But the thing that was advertised the most was the meat power up.
Yes. And it reached a point in the game where the last half I actively avoided the meat power-ups. But let's go through the basics of it first. I'm getting ahead of myself.
So you've got meat, which you can eat, and if you eat meat once, you get angry, just like in real life.
Just like real life, yeah.
And if you eat more meat, you get really angry, and you become invincible, just like in real life.
Just like real life,
yeah. And then your anger slowly subsides, and then you will, turn back into regular Bonk eventually. And if you want to stay in angry mode, you have to keep eating meat. But there are some advantages to it. So in addition to the invincibility you get with the angriest mode, if you're even middle angry, you have an earthquake you can cause if you headbutt the ground, which will stun enemies. And that's moderately useful sometimes, and also just kind of slows things down sometimes.
Yeah.
But there is a cute little animation whenever you eat meat, and his head blows open.
It's cute the first 700 times. And then it's like, here's the thing. I'll see meat and I'll see a line of enemies, but if there's a platform nearby and I can just hover over the whole section,
right,
I'll skip the meat every time.
Yeah.
And it became a thing where I was skipping the meat because I don't want to sit through these 2 or 3 rapid, because they always put the meat right next to each other.
Well, so sometimes they give you a big meat instead.
Yeah, or they just give you one big one. Yeah. And so I didn't want to go through the animations, so I would just float over the enemies, because you don't keep that state. Like if I stayed powered up Bonk, I would go out of my way to grab it. But even if I did grab it, all right, I've got it. But then,
a couple seconds.
Yeah, if I spend too long platforming or being too careful, it just goes away anyway. So why would I waste the time?
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird that they advertise that so heavily and not the hovering, because the hovering feels like a more important move in his moveset than the earthquake or the invincibility, to me anyway. And you don't even need a power up for that.
Can we talk about the weird fucking climbing?
Sure, yeah. Or where he eats the wall.
Bonk is able to climb walls. And now here's the thing. This is how I know they knew you had fucking turbo. In addition to the fact that obviously they knew that and they were designers. But just to put the nail in the coffin, to climb a wall, Bonk will grab onto it and open his mouth and seems to use his teeth to drag himself up a wall.
Right, yeah, like you do.
But you have to mash the A button repeatedly.
The one button.
The one button repeatedly.
Yeah.
To climb these walls, such that every time I'm on a wall, I would just flip turbo on, because then I could just hold the button and like zoom straight up the wall.
So it's 2023. I first played this game like 30 years ago. I would like to say, never once did I even think about turning on turbo to climb walls. Like,
what the fuck?
I don't know why.
There's a whole level where all you do is climb trees. I just zoomed right up it.
Man, that sounds so much easier now that you say it. Well, no, I would just turbo finger it. I mean, I'd already gotten accustomed to turbo finger from other games on NES or whatever. I just did not even think about that. Does make
I
sense,
just flip the turbo on, zoom up there, and then flip it off real quick.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Especially with the turbo mini controller, where the second button is a turbo button.
Yeah.
It's even easier because then you're not flipping it off and on.
8-bit one.
Yeah, the 8-bit mini controller.
Yeah, that's a good point.
There are some bosses.
Yep. And they're adorable.
They are very adorable. They do kind of highlight one of my other issues with this game, which is that the difficulty is all fucking over the place.
Yeah.
And this is pretty indicative.
But it's rarely at the bosses.
Yeah. This is kind of indicative of this level, this style of platformer, where it's like, there's not really a difficulty curve. Some of the later levels, they put a bunch of shit on screen. It doesn't necessarily make it harder. Sometimes it just makes it more annoying. One of the bosses, there's like 6 bosses if you count both of the in-game bosses. But there's really only like 4 regular bosses. And one of them is this lady who turns into 2 people and then disappears.
Yeah.
And she is extremely difficult.
Yeah. that one sucks.
All the rest of them, you can just kind of headbutt hover and squish them and they die, and it's not very hard at all.
I like that first boss that suddenly grows like a beetle's haircut when you kill him.
Oh, yeah, the big doofus dragon.
Yeah, I love him. He's my favorite. In all the Bonk games, he's always my favorite.
But they're cool.
Yeah.
The sprites are enormous. It's really fun to see them, animated around on the screen.
Yeah.
It's just they're visual highlights, but they're not gameplay highlights.
I would agree with that. Yeah. But then you get to save some Zaw.
Yeah. So in the end, you find Princess Zaw, who is a dinosaur. You have to fight King Drool, I believe. Yep. Is the name of the big. His sprite, the boss sprite for King Drool, is really cool.
Oh yeah.
And you save her, and apparently she's from a different planet called Moonland.
Yeah.
And all the other dinosaurs are from Moonland, and they're also happy to be back on Moonland because you saved Princess Zaw.
Yeah.
And that's it. Yep. That's the game. Thank you for playing. Congratulations. You got it.
Yeah.
Let's talk reception.
You sound so disappointed.
Let's
like
talk
you
reception.
didn't want to save Princess Zaw or
Before
something.
I talk about my reception, and I want to bring up. I was reading the CVG UK review for the game.
Yeah, I wrote a clip from that in here too.
Oh, and they really loved it, but I don't. I don't think you included this one quote.
Oh, okay.
That I want to. There's a section in this review, and it's big red letters, and it's like the heading of a section, and it says "Nut them nasties."
I do remember that. Yeah, that's good.
Nut them nasties.
I'm used to that phrase being in a very different kind of magazine.
I don't know what the verb form of nut means in the UK.
It means to hit something with your head.
But it means something different in the US.
Correct.
So please don't encourage kids to nut them nasties. That's bad.
I like that in the clip you just sent me. It talks about how you can nut them jolly little bird things. England never change. We love you just the way you are.
Nut them nasties. Oh man.
Now the quote that I had in there was him talking about how the US version of the game, the TurboGrafx version, is called Bonk because they didn't get the TurboGrafx at all in Europe. So they only got the Amiga port, which was called BC Kid.
Mm-hmm.
And
they call him PC Kid in a lot of the text in the review,
right?
Too.
Because they decided that was the translation of the PC Engine version.
Yes.
But they state that in the States, where the PC Engine is known as the TurboGrafx, he's known as Bonk. Just imagine trying to explain that one to your parents while they're rifling through your games pile, because apparently Bonk is British slang for fucking.
I love that. This cut both ways.
Right?
Oh, this is perfect.
Yeah.
Nut them nasties.
Yeah, I was not aware that bonk was British slang because we use boink here in the US.
Even then, boink is like the way that like a second grader would refer to sex.
Right.
That's like a goofy. Nobody's like, "Hey, baby, you want to boink?" Like nobody uses the word boink in like a legitimate sexual encounter.
But you know what it means. At least.
It's like the goofy way to refer to sex.
And I assume that it's the same with bonk.
No one's like, "I caught my parents boinking." Like nobody says that.
I would absolutely say that first of all.
But to the point, the reception of the game was good.
Yeah, it was generally well received at the time, especially for the graphics, which at the time were amazing in 1989. So
yeah, the Amiga port got a 93% from CVG,
which is a good port, by the way. I tested that out on my A500 Mini. It's nice. That's a good port.
That's the one port I didn't play.
And it looks better than the TurboGrafx port because it looks basically identical, but with better shading and more colors, which is impressive because, man, it's got a lot of colors on the Turbo.
Like a lot of platformers of this ilk and of this era, I feel like time hasn't been very kind to Bonk's Adventure.
Right.
I think the other two Bonk games are vast improvements.
I keep wanting to call it Boink's Adventure now.
I think the other two Boink games in which you nut nasties are vast improvements. But you know, I don't think this is a bad game.
No, not at all.
This is just a really simple game that this is the game that you play before you play the other two Bonk games, just because
right.
You're like, I'm never going to go back to Bonk 1 after I play the other two because they're so much better.
Exactly.
It's not bad. It's just not great.
But there's more than 2 sequels, Justin.
Oh, are there?
Yes.
Do tell of the legacy of Bonk.
The legacy of Bonk. Well, first you have to nut some nasties.
Yeah.
So there were the 2 sequels that were on Turbo, which was Bonk's Revenge and Bonk 3, Bonk's Big Adventure. The third game, Bonk 3, got a Super CD-ROM release exclusively in North America, where it's the same game but with Red Book audio.
I've played that one.
Then there was 2 Super Nintendo games, Super Bonk and Super Bonk 2.
Oh.
And the second one only released in Japan, but the first one did get an international release, I believe even in Europe.
I don't know why I always thought those were just up ports of Bonk 1 and 2.
Completely different games, new power-ups. I think in the first Super Bonk, he immediately has the ability to grow and shrink like in Bonk 3 on Turbo. So it's and also they take place in the future because you're in a big city with skyscrapers.
Weird. Do they ever explain the time travel narratively? Or?
If so, it's in the manual, and I didn't have that. So
okay,
you know,
all right.
And then speaking of the future, there was Air Zonk, which is the spin-off series.
Oh man, Air Zonk and Super Air Zonk are so good.
Air Zonk is good.
Saturn, don't be down on Super Air Zonk.
I'm gonna be a little down on Super Air Zonk. It's not as good as the original.
Air Zonk is great.
It does have
games.
a better subtitle.
What is it?
I believe it was Rockabilly Paradise.
Yes, that is it. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
What a great series.
I was unaware of this 3D remake, and I want to know more. How bad is it?
It's not great. There was a 3D remake in 2003 on PS2 and GameCube. I've got it on my Wii on my hard drive, and it is it has no personality at all. It feels like one of those games somebody would have made when they were first testing Blender or whatever 3D art tool they're playing with.
Yeah.
And also, anytime that you do the angry ground smash or whatever, there's giant Japanese text that appears on screen. And it's very bland. It's as bland as it can possibly be. It is Japanese exclusive. All of Hudson's 3D remakes of that era were Japanese exclusive. Adventure Island and Star Soldier and this and some other one.
Were any of them worth a shit?
Star Soldier was okay. Bonk and Adventure Island and Lode Runner is the fourth one. Those I could pass on.
I'm just in a very sexual slaying mindset now, and Lode Runner sounds very different to me after all this discussion. And it has never hit me like that, but as soon as you said Lode Runner, I was like, oh, Lode Runner.
That's the guy who collected the nut from the nasties. He's got to run it now.
Y'all done bonking in here? I'm the Lode Runner.
Gonna run your load. Anyway, the Amiga version of the game was ported to the Amiga by Factor 5, who you probably remember from the Star Wars games on N64 and GameCube. And they have made the ROM image or disk image of the Amiga version free on their website. So you can go download that right now, as well as their port of R-Type to Amiga.
Now, the Amiga port looks really accurate.
Oh, yeah. It looks very, very good, just better colors and better shading.
I played the NES and Game Boy ports, and they're definitely different.
Yeah.
The Game Boy port, honestly, is very impressive.
Yeah.
I'm very impressed by how well that plays.
Yeah.
It's a very fun, viable version of the game.
Oh, yeah. And it was several years into the Game Boy's life, too, when it came out. I want to say the Game Boy had been out for 3 or 4 years by that point.
Yeah.
And the NES version is grossly expensive now.
Oh no!
It's like $200, $300 last I checked.
It does have NES-sized sprites. All the sprites are a little bit smaller.
Oh yeah,
Everying looks NES size.
right. And the colors are just a bit worse.
Yeah, they're a little more bland. Bonk looks almost white.
It was one of those super late Hudson releases on the NES, like Felix the Cat and Panic Restaurant, that was Taito. I don't remember which other ones Hudson put out real late, but they're all pretty expensive. I think Bomberman 2 is one of them. Hudson did release a mobile phone port of the game in 2008 in Japan.
Oh
no! There was also a game specifically for mobile phones called Bonk's Return, which was developed by Two Tribes, and it was released in North America on cell phones in 2006. I could find no information about that game other than it existed. Two Tribes, I believe that's the people who make Tokitori.
Oh yeah, Tokitori.
So,
people like Tokitori.
Yeah. So they at least have, some skill. So maybe they could make a
pedigree.
Decent, maybe they made a decent feature phone game in 2006. There was the Wii Virtual Console release in 2006 and the Wii U Virtual Console release in 2016. And the Japanese version is available on the TurboGrafx Mini in all regions. As well as the U.S. version of Bonk's Revenge. So you can play the first 2 Bonk games on your TurboGrafx Mini if you got one before they got stupid expensive.
Are they stupid expensive now too?
Yeah, they're $200-$300, give or take.
They sat in stock for the longest time.
Yep.
As far as final thoughts on Bonk.
Yes.
I
love bonking.
I mean, bonking's great.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I love to nut them nasties. Okay. But just don't like it when Load Runner shows up too early and you're like, get out of here.
God, dude, I just double checked the price of the NES version of Bonk's Adventure on price charting. Loose, $1,000.
Oh!
In box, $2,400. New, $9,600.
Oh, I'm going to throw up.
Right?
Don't pay that much for Bonk's Adventure on NES.
Don't do that.
It's not that good of a game.
No, it's not even it's not a great port of the game. Go play it somewhere else.
It's not. So, here's my thing about Bonk.
Yes.
This is, of the mainline Bonk games, possibly the worst
it's
that
the
I've played.
blandest.
It is not a very nice game.
No.
It's very mean. And it's not a super well-designed game as far as, like, level design.
Yeah, it's pretty basic. It definitely feels more like a proof of concept than like a fully fleshed out game. And you can really feel that if you play the sequels because they start to feel more fleshed out.
That said, I don't think it's a bad game.
No, not at all.
It's just not great.
There are many much worse platformers of this era.
Totally. I'll play this over Cheetahman or I can't think of any other bad games right now, but I thought of Cheetahman.
Well, I'm glad it is better than Cheetahman. God. Gross.
It's okay. I would recommend any other mainline Bonk over it, though.
Oh, yeah.
It's interesting to play, like you said. Like if this game came out and someone said, "Hey, a prototype for if Bonk's Revenge was the first game and I found this game and I heard that it was a prototype for Bonk's Revenge," I'd be like, "Oh yeah, I could totally see that."
Right.
It's they just hadn't quite figured it out in this first game.
Yeah, they were getting there, but it wasn't quite there.
Yeah, and I don't think it's bad for it. It's just not like if you could put up with like Adventure Island and you can sit down and play and enjoy that, you can probably enjoy the first Bonk.
Yeah.
You know, if you're the kind of person that when you go play the Mega Man games, you always start with Mega Man 1 instead of the correct starting point, which is Mega Man 2, then you could probably sit through Bonk.
Yeah, if you're a fan of platformers of this era, you're probably going to find some things to enjoy in it because it does have some things to enjoy in there.
Definitely.
But if you are not accustomed to platformers of this era and you are used to just things like Mario 3 and Mario World, the more polished platformers,
the cream of the crop, the ones that have maintained through the years.
Yeah, maybe skip the first Bonk and play around with the second or the third or maybe even the Super NES game.
Yeah. Anyway, if you love to bonk, then please go check out our Patreon at patreon.com/retrowarriors, where you can get uncut versions of our Bonk episode.
Yeah,
and you can hear us
where you
talk
can hear
before
us
the show.
nut some more nasties.
What a gross. It's not that they used it not knowing that it was slang in the US.
Right.
It's that pairing it with the word nasties makes it so gross.
For all
It's
I know,
such
it
a
also means the same thing in Europe now.
It's such a gross phrase.
Someone in our chat had said nutting something one time, referring to it as headbutting something.
Yeah.
And it just made me laugh so much.
We have a Patreon, patreon.com/retrowarriors. You can get uncut versions of this show. You can get our show read along. You can get Talking Wizards. It's just it's a good time. We want you come have a good time with us.
Please come have a good time with us.
We're at the Patreon. It does also help the show if you rate and review us.
Yes.
It helps more people find the show. It also helps more people find the show if you go find people and say, hey, do you listen to Retro Warriors? And then they go, no, what is that? And you go, it's this really great podcast. Don't start with the Bonk's Adventure episode because it's a little weird, but they do some other really good ones that you should listen to.
They're less about nutting.
Maybe save that one for later. It's mostly about nutting. So just
I don't think we've said nutting this much since that one episode where we talked about nutting associates.
Just give it some room to breathe. We do want to thank the following patrons, starting with Justin's transitions are my new favorite part of the show.
Don't let them lie to you like that, Justin. And Harry Pry.
Mr. Jiggyfly.
Todd Bass.
Craig C.
Chris R.
Puff Puff, please.
Neil Hayes.
Blackened.
And Dr. Jason Tharp.
Are all the kind patrons we want to thank for their kind donations. Although I don't know the donations were kind. Maybe they gave them up aggressively. I assume they were kind donations.
They're aggressive donations.
Yeah. Maybe they looked at their bank statement and saw that their money was taken out and was like, those bastards stealing from me again. It's possible. But either way, we would like to thank those people. And we want to thank you for listening after the credits because our producer guy is going to be here.
Yes.
For the after party where he talks to us about things and sometimes takes notes on the show as we record them. I'm a little nervous what the notes are going to be this time.
Right.
But we will find out. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. We'll be back next week. And as always, let us cling together. Hi, welcome to the after party with our producer, Guy.
Yo.
Guy. Oh, he's here. Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah, you were
We should
worried,
have
weren't
a-
you?
We're always worried.
I've never been as worried as that time that you just didn't say anything for 5 seconds. Ever
Good.
since then, I've been less worried. How's it going, Guy?
Good. I don't know, taking off
You
time.
nutted you nutted any nasties lately, or
That is my personal business.
Oh, my bad.
okay.
I did have something around Load Runner, but I just
Just going to let that one go.
yeah.
Guy,
No, you know
do you
what?
think-
No, Load Runner is something you do afterwards when you're going
Right.
to clean up.
Right.
Yeah.
That's when you go get a towel.
Right.
That's the load run.
Anyway,
So that's after you're done nutting the nasties.
Yes. Right. That's Jesus
somebody's got to
Christ.
do the load run.
There's a line somewhere.
It's way
And
behind us.
I think it was 20 minutes ago.
Probably.
I think is where the line was.
I like that you know
but-
I come with notes now. That's nice.
Well, every time you're like, let me check my notes. And I'm like, he takes notes?
Yeah,
Feels so official.
This one says you didn't call out no credits.
What do you mean? What? No credits?
At the end of it, you always say, always, every
after
time.
listen after the credits.
You listen after the credits, and then, well, we don't really have credits, so whatever.
We don't. Well, we do have credits, but we read them already. It's our patrons.
Yeah, fair enough.
So, they're there, but you have to listen to them. I guess you can skip them.
Can you please insert a thing like over the end theme that's you saying, and for Chris Saturn, I'm Justin Baker. Good night.
For all of us here at Retro Warriors.
Great.
I would love to record some weird old like news station clips like that.
Then you have
so
credits.
weird.
Right?
Then we would have credits. This is correct.
All right, I'm in Parker County.
I know you're in Parker County. You have a game store in Parker County.
Oh, we do? I didn't know that.
You do. It used to be in the like little town square you got in Weatherford.
Uh-huh.
But I was talking to the owner not too long ago, and he said he's got a new location. It's like 1,000 square foot building that he's moving to. So if you need to know any tabletop gaming store news in the DFW area, I'm your man, apparently.
I think the point of that note was to say that I'm in your Wise County group and coming to some of the events. So
you are indeed.
Other people in the DFW area, Wise County isn't near as far as Justin makes it sound like it is.
It all depends on where you are, right? So here's the other thing is,
but like, I think if you live in the Metroplex, getting anywhere else in the Metroplex is an hour.
So the other thing is,
especially if you have to take LBJ anywhere, then it's like 2 hours.
We're holding the events in Decatur, which is the biggest like town near me, and it's right off of one of the highways. So getting to Decatur from a lot of places like Denton and like northwestern portions of Fort Worth is much faster than like getting to my house.
Oh yeah.
It's like 20 minutes faster.
Right.
Like if I lived in Decatur, it would not be such a big deal to drive places but it's being where I am adds another 15, 20 minutes on top of all of it. So hopefully we get some people that aren't necessarily in Wise County, but are, Wise County adjacent.
Yeah,
that would be nice. I had one person message me from a larger tabletop Discord I'm on that was like, hey, sometimes I travel near DFW. Like, where are you? Maybe I'll come out to some of your stuff. And it turns out he travels to the eastern side of DFW.
Oh, yeah. No, that's a hike.
And I was like, you don't want to drive 2 hours to my side of DFW. That would not be fun for you.
Although we did drive from like South Fort Worth up to like past Louisville. That was a hike just to go to King Spa.
Yeah, that sounds like it sucks.
Louisville's like 5-10 minutes from my house.
I know.
My thing is like, especially with like tabletop gaming, like if it's an hour, it's an hour and a half to Plano. And that means it's 3 hours of driving. So if I find someone, I'm like, hey, you want to hang out and play some Netrunner for like an hour and a half? And they're like, sure. Then I'm driving for 3 hours to play an hour or two of games, and it just, the value proposition is not there.
That's fair.
Yeah, that's pretty fair.
Like if I'm going, like, I've been doing conventions lately and, I'm driving an hour to the conventions, but then I'm there for 2 days. I don't mind that. But it's like, I'm not going to drive 3-4 hours to play one game of Root. It's just kind of not worth it to me.
What's wrong with Root, you jerk?
It's not worth driving 3 hours for when I can just play the video game version at home and save half a tank of gas and 3 hours of driving.
I guess.
So that's kind of where I am. Me and Andrew used to meet up in Waco, which is 2 hours away. And even that drive felt better than driving to the far side of Dallas because I'm not having to drive through Dallas.
Yeah, driving through Dallas is really the problem.
Yeah.
It's an issue. So yeah, I hope it all works out. I hope, we get people. I know, Guy, you're coming. I convinced Andrew to come. I demanded that y'all come, actually, is what happened. Because I'm very nervous that no one's going to show up to this event and I'm going to look like a jackass to the manager of this coffee shop who I convinced to give me he said, all right, last Thursday of every month is your night, your tabletop gaming night. You show up, you do your thing. And I'm really nervous no one's going to show up and I'm just going to be sitting there like, sorry. Oops. So I was like, Andrew and Guy, you have to come.
Do we all be hammered? Is that like required before we drive?
Coffee shop? It is a bar as well.
Oh,
it's a
okay.
coffee shop and a bar.
All right, that makes more sense.
It's pretty nice. It's the odd nice establishment in Wise County because most of the stuff out here is just sucks.
Yeah, it's true.
Real bad. It's not even that everything out here is just like chain garbage. It's like, one of the main places to eat is fucking Chili's, but it's not that it's Chili's. It's the worst Chili's you've ever been to.
You know what's usually good in
sucks.
areas like that? Waffle House.
We don't have Waffle House.
How dare you?
We have an IHOP, and it sucks.
Do you have a Dairy Queen?
It's the worst Dairy Queen
Oh,
I've
no.
ever been to in my life.
Oh, have you been
It's
to the one in
terrible.
Crum? Because I bet it's worse.
My mom went to a Dairy Queen out here.
Yeah.
And she got a dip cone. For people that don't know what a dip cone is, it is when they take a soft serve ice cream cone and they dip it in this like chocolate hard shell concoction, and they do it before your very eyes.
Yeah.
And it turns into hard chocolate, like whatever the concoction of the chocolate is. And so it's, when you're a kid, you like it. You watch them dip the cone, it comes out, and now the liquid chocolate is hard chocolate. It's so cool. My mom got a dip cone and they hand it to her, and the chocolate is just dripping all off of it because it didn't turn hard. It's the only time. This is a weird Dairy Queen fact. People that don't know, Dairy Queen is a fast food place that is known for serving ice cream and things that sometimes resemble food.
And Dairy Queen is throughout the U.S.
I thought they were in the South only.
No, they only serve food in the South, but they serve treats everywhere.
Really?
Whereas up north, apparently Dairy Queen is a seasonal restaurant that is only open during the summer when they have ice cream, and during the winter it's just closed.
So at Dairy Queen, they have a thing called a Blizzard, and it's just soft serve ice cream that they mix bits of candy into. And every time you get a Blizzard, before they hand you the Blizzard, they turn it upside down to verify visually to you that the spoon and the ice cream do not fall out of your Blizzard. That's how you know your Blizzard is the correct consistency.
Yeah.
I've never been to a Dairy Queen in my life where they didn't tilt my Blizzard upside down until I lived out here.
They're supposed to. That's
they don't fucking do it out here.
Yep.
It used to be that if they didn't tip it, you got it for free.
Exactly.
And out here, they don't tip that shit because it would fall right the fuck out of the cup.
Did I tell you about the time that they had opened up a Dairy Queen near my old house, and I went there to get a Strawberry Julius shortly after they opened? Because I'm a big Orange Julius fan. I'm not as big of a Dairy Queen fan. But Dairy Queen owns Orange Julius now, so I can get Orange Julius there. And so I go to this new Dairy Queen, and it's packed. They are so busy, and it is fairly new, so all the staff is still learning how things work. And I order a large Strawberry Julius, and all their cups say Blizzard on them, but just because that's the only cups they have.
Right.
And I'm standing there waiting for it, and I can see that they finished making my Julius, and it's sitting on the counter waiting for them to hand it to me. And so I'm sitting there staring at it for several minutes, and finally this young girl comes by, and she's like, "Are you waiting for something?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's my drink there." And she grabs it, and she just assumes it's a Blizzard and just flips it over.
Oh, no.
And Strawberry Julius just goes everywhere.
Yeah, it's just a fucking Slurpee.
Right. It's not even a Slurpee. It's like a smoothie. And it just goes everywhere. And like she's like just staring stunned at the ground. The manager lady is staring stunned at the ground. I'm like, can I get a different one?
At what point did you go, it wasn't a Blizzard?
But yeah. And they felt so bad. They're like, "Can we refund your money?" I'm like, "No, it's fine. I'm not hurt. Your floor is more damaged than I am. It's fine."
Yeah.
But yeah.
When you're a
Did you get your
kid,
drink?
I did. They did make me a new Strawberry Julius. It was great.
Oh, well, that's nice.
Yeah.
when you're a kid and you go through Dairy Queen, you fucking watch them and they flip that Blizzard and they dip that dip cone and you watch them do it. It's the most exciting part about going to Dairy Queen because the food and the ice cream is not the most exciting part because it's subpar. But you're waiting for them to not flip that Blizzard so you can be like, I get it for free. Like that's what you're waiting on, you know?
Oh, see, I didn't encounter a flipping Dairy Queen until college, I guess.
You could have been getting free Blizzards all these years, man.
Yeah, there's like one out here in Parker County. Well, I guess there's a few, but like between me and Weatherford.
By now, yeah.
But yeah.
They didn't have Dairy Queens like in the city when I was growing up. Like we had to drive out to either middle of nowhere or out where my mom's parents lived or something.
They were like a rural thing.
Yeah, they were the rural thing. And so it was always a special treat if we happened to stop by Dairy Queen on the way home from my grandmother's house or something. But they would do the Blizzard flip then, back in the late 80s.
The town I grew up in had a Dairy Queen, and we ate lunch and dinner there like all the time. We'd be at Dairy Queen once a week.
I didn't eat food at a Dairy Queen until I was in college because they just wasn't a place we went to for that.
I used to go to Dairy Queen, and they would serve steak fingers and Texas toast with gravy, and that's what I would go get there.
Yeah.
And a couple years ago, me and Courtney were out. We'd been on a hike somewhere at some state park, and we were just looking for food, and we're in the middle of fucking nowhere because it's a state park, so there's no infrastructure around it.
Yeah.
And the only place there is Dairy Queen, so we go eat there, and I'm like, well, I'll get those fucking steak fingers.
Yeah.
And they serve it with Texas toast and the gravy.
Right.
And the steak fingers, I could not find the steak in them. I'm convinced they just gave me fried breading. And it took so long that I was like, I'll just eat the fried breading because you obviously did your best. And I'm good. Like, we just finished a hike. I'm like, I just need fucking food in me right now. I don't care what it is. And it was the worst. It was so bad.
I had, when I worked as a in-home computer tech, I got called out to somewhere up in way north Denton County. And so I stopped. I was in the city called Crum. I was driving through it to get to where I was going, and on my way back, I was like, I'm just hungry. I need to eat now. I skipped lunch. It's almost dinner time. I need to eat. And they had a Dairy Queen. It was the only place for another 10 miles. So I stopped at this Dairy Queen, and I was like, I'll just take a burger and some fries and a drink. That's all I want right now. And I drove off and was like already on the highway, and I reached for my burger, and I open it up, and it is lettuce, tomato, and mustard on bread.
Oh, no.
Vegetarian special.
Right? And it was so much mustard.
So you just had
Well, it's to make
mustard
up for
on
the meat.
lettuce?
They got the wrong M.
Right. Yeah, I think it was like burger's worth of mustard, like as much as what the patty would have taken up.
Do you think that... You think that maybe they ran out of patties and the guy on the line was just like, fuck it, I'll just put so much mustard on there he won't notice there's no patty? Like, what do you...
I don't know what they were thinking. And I had gone too far. I was just like, I'm not turning around. I'll just wait till I'm back in
Eat my
civilization.
mustard burger?
No, I just waited till I was back in civilization, got something else. I just ate fries and was like, fuck it. This is lunch and dinner now.
Guy, how's your segment going?
It's good.
It's going
You
good?
mean like rapid fire through the rest of my notes?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Please do.
I guess, yeah.
It says, my dad had 2 cars with auto seatbelts.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, those were so fancy.
Well, here's the thing about the auto seat belt.
Mm-hmm.
The auto seat belt is on a track and it goes up around your shoulder, but
Right.
you still have to put the lap belt on
Yeah.
manually,
Oh,
Yeah.
which is as much effort as the fucking putting a regular seat belt on.
To answer your question, they stopped for safety reasons because
Yeah.
those...
They're choking people.
Well, yeah, it's choking people. The belts stopped working, so then people only had lap belts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then sometimes people just got annoyed with them, so they disconnected them and then only had lap belts.
Yeah, what my dad would always do is he would always just latch the lap belt before he would sit down. So it was just latching
Just
nothing.
leave it there.
And that way the auto belt would still cover his chest, so it looked like he was wearing a seat belt, even though he wasn't.
So he could just like fire out the bottom of the seat if he got in a wreck.
Yeah, yeah.
There's
great.
they sell just the seat belt buckle part.
Yep. Yeah,
Like you can go on Amazon and just buy that. I know several people that do not wear a seatbelt and they just leave that thing clicked in so that they don't have the light
noise.
Their car. And I'm like, why do you not want to wear a seat? Like, you know why it's there, right?
Right.
Like, I don't know why you think it's there, but obviously you must be wrong or an idiot because, man.
Yeah, my dad's entire life he refused to wear seatbelts unless I would enforce it. Anytime he was in my car.
Yeah, that's dumb. What else you got, guy?
It says, I cried when we sold the red one. Oh, okay. I know what that is. Okay.
All right.
We got 2 Mazda. I forget what the hell the kind of car it was, but they were the same model, right? And we had a red one when we moved from Austin to this house. And then we sold that one and got a gray one. And I was real sad about the red one. And then my dad was like, yeah, but we got the same car. And I was like, but it's not red. I was so sad. But my dad was happy because the 88 Mazda didn't have the doors ajar lady.
Yeah.
Yeah, they stopped doing that. They're like, oh, people don't like that, I guess.
Nobody liked the doors ajar person. The Chrysler was a dude. It wasn't a lady.
Do you think that the doors ajar people, like, at bars would be like, door is ajar? Like, just people be like, oh, you're the person. Like, do you think that was like a thing they could do, like, in public, you know? Like, okay, man. Kids, for special guests this week at school, we have the doors ajar lady. If you owned a Mazda from 1989 to 1992, you'll know this voice. Like, do you think that was like they went on tour? Like,
their claim to fame.
One of those game shows, like, it sounds like a British game show, right?
Yeah.
That sounds like the perfect contestant for What's My Line right there. That is,
yeah,
that's beautiful.
Final Fight guy should be some patron reward tier or like an RW tournament.
If someone makes me a guy sprite, I'll figure out how to mod it into our game. They just got to make you into a sprite, and I'll mod it into Final Fight. Can't be that hard.
Perfect.
So anyway, Justin learned 8086 assembler, I
guess. For a joke.
Right.
Oh,
not even really a good one.
More of a pun.
My last note just says dip cup, and I think that's about our conversation from last week.
Yes.
Where you were talking about, several people who chew tobacco.
No, hold on.
Okay.
Every person I have ever known that habitually chewed tobacco has a story where at least one time they accidentally drank their dip spit.
Oh, yeah, I know that too. Everybody that does that, yeah.
Everyone I ever everyone I ever knew that was like, oh yeah, I dip. You'd always be like, you ever accidentally drank it? They'd be like, oh yeah, this one time I was in my car. Every one of them has that story.
Yeah.
And it's so what does that have to do with anything though?
Because you said dip cone.
Oh, dip cone. You were taking notes of the early parts of the after party. Yes. If you do this, we're never going to get out of here.
No, I know. But it reminded me that my wife was telling me a story about, I think, a roommate that she had or a boyfriend or something who used a Dr. Pepper can for a dip cup.
Yeah.
And his apartment was like littered with Dr. Pepper cans because he didn't really clean up after himself.
Gross.
So it was like a daily occasion, really.
So we've gone the full gamut of disgusting in this episode, I think.
Yep.
So I think I'm going to stop us there. God, thank you for being on the show and being our producer. And thank you for listening out there as we covered the full breadth of disgusting, gross topics.
Yeah.
So you're welcome.
We have nutted all the nasties at this point.
Circling back around to that. Huh? All right. Thanks for listening.